are watching Notepad. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. We've never had a conversation with the people from Labuan FSA. So joining me this evening is Danial Mah, the Director General, the DG or Director General of Labuan FSA. Daniel, again, thanks very much for spending your time with us.
Thank you. Yeah.
There's plenty of things that we need to unearth in this interview. Let's start with the whole structure of Labuan FSA, the regulator, as well as IBFC.
Right. Okay. But I guess to start with Labuan FSA, you need to start with Labuan IBFC.
Yep. I agree.
And frankly, I also want to talk a bit about Labuan. Labuan, as you all know, is in East Malaysia. We are a federal territory since 1984. Labuan IBFC was declared in 1990, so we are already like 28 years old. But in the arena of financial center, 28 years is still pretty young. I mean, if we compare ourselves with other jurisdictions, most of them are already like 100 over years, right? So going back to Labuan, so it was declared as a Labuan IBFC in 1990. We have grown quite a bit since then. In Labuan IBFC now we have 55 banks, 200 over insurance companies, 300 over leasing companies, about 16,000 types of companies that are operating through Labuan IBFC. But of course, quite a bit of incentives were given to them. Now, within this framework of all these players, of course, the regulator is Labuan FSA. Labuan FSA stands for Labuan Financial Services Authority. We are like a one-stop agency. The functions of, say, if you are familiar with Central Bank, Securities Commission, with the SSM, then you can say that we encompass all these functions to do the administration for Labuan IBFC. So all the players in Labuan, all those players which I mentioned about, the bankers, the insurance, the trust companies, the normal companies, in a way we administer them.
You see, when offshore stations or offshore centers are created, it's meant to facilitate the financial transactions of any country, and also facilitate the financial transactions of not just our neighbors, but anyone on earth, I guess.
That's right.
Who wants to transact with us.
Yeah.
Do you foresee that this is going to be like, I mean, Labuan, compared to other regions, offshore regions or centers, has Labuan met its mark in terms of its goals and targets? Yeah,
I mean, of course, there are various objectives. I mean, the reason why Labuan IBFC was set up is to make sure that Labuan developed as an island. That's the reason why we are there in many ways, to help spur the local economy. So to some extent, we have achieved that. In fact, to many extent, we have achieved. For example, like more than 50% of the local economy actually is contributed by Labuan IBFC. So we are quite important there. In terms of employment, we employ about 5,000 to 6,000 people. And that has, in many ways, contributed to the economy of Labuan itself, island. Now, if you say compare ourselves with other jurisdictions, now every jurisdiction have their own so-called niche business, if you want to put that term. Like in the case of Bermuda, they are strong in insurance. In the case of probably Cayman, they are probably strong in banking. Whereas Labuan like to see ourselves as a jurisdiction for this part of the world, because if you look at the map of the world, Labuan is smack right in the middle of the Asia-Pacific region. And we are the only one actually in this part of the world. So a lot of our business actually come from this part of the world. And with the entry of now some big players now in Labuan, I think at the end of the day we will see a lot more growth in Labuan. And hopefully we are also doing a bit of changes in our policies, particularly relating to substance requirement, where you need to have people working in Labuan with offices there as well. So that will, in a way, create a lot of boom for Labuan. So
do you think that Singapore is a major competitor?
I don't see Singapore as a major as a competitor to me. In fact,
so
if at all,
so
I want.
Competitor?
Well, if I want to go back to Singapore, if at all, I want to tap more business from Singapore.
Yeah, but who's a competitor?
If you say competitor in this part of the world, probably the nearest one will probably be Mauritius, because they also take some business from, say, this part of the world. Some Chinese companies, some Hong Kong companies, they also go there. But now we are seeing quite a bit of stream of so-called Chinese companies as well as Japanese companies that are coming to use Labuan as well. So in a way, I think there are a lot of positive things that is happening right now, and I think this will create a lot of boom for us.
Let's talk about the niche area that Labuan may have or is trying to capitalize on. I realize here that you are sitting on some boards, including that of the Islamic financial market or International Islamic Financial Market, IFM. Is Islamic finance maybe something that Labuan can capitalize on?
Yeah, I mean, we do try to differentiate ourselves with other financial centers, and of course Malaysia is very strong in Islamic finance, so we are just a natural extension of what is happening in Malaysia. Don't forget, Labuan is still part of Malaysia, right? So we do try to capitalize that niche, so to speak. But of course, as you know, Islamic finance is quite competitive. Every center is also trying to do that. In the Middle East, the IFC, Kazakhstan. So it's not that, well, like I say, it's quite competitive, but we differentiate ourselves with other offshore centers. Having said that, the IFFM that you talk about is an international body that we are part of. It is a standard setting body that talks about creating standardized documents for capital market transactions. And we are actually a founding member of it since many years ago. It is based in Bahrain, of course, but the institutions that are part of this IFFM are all international players. And because we are in that loop, so in a way, Labuan is tied up with a lot of all these international so-called players, and that will actually help us to generate more Islamic so-called financial activities in Labuan.
So how do you, what would be your key KPIs? Dah lah, KPI, key lagi, okay? Key
I thought it was supposed to be a basic interview to talk about Labuan.
No, seriously, right?
Yeah.
So what would be the 3 things that you have to like achieve this year, something like that?
Oh, okay. I guess at the end of the day, I just want to generate more employment for Labuan itself. Well, Labuan is an island with about, what, 100,000 people? But having said that, even though with the so-called downturn in the oil activities in the past few years, economic activities in Labuan has sort of like tapered a bit because of that, because it used to be an oil and gas sector center.
But it's dead.
Well, it's not really dead. I mean, it has slowed down a bit. So in a way, and unemployment is also what they call is pretty high for Labuan. So my main aim is really, and hopefully with the new policy that we are introducing, it will generate a lot more so-called employment for
the people. So what's that policy that you're introducing?
It's called substance requirement. It is really a fiscal tax policies that we are changing for Labuan, but it is not only applicable to Labuan. Everywhere else in the world is doing it. It is an initiative under the OECD. They have a body called the FHTV, where they look at the various tax practices of all the jurisdictions in the world, including Malaysia, which includes also Labuan. All those various incentive schemes that have been put into place.
So you think this will help the
well, not to say this will help, but because of the change in policy to accommodate all these requirements that we need to put in place, the basic thing that you need to have under these so-called changes is that you need to have presence in Labuan. You need to have substantial activities in Labuan, meaning when you want to do business in Labuan, you need to have at least people there, and also have some capex. We call it capex, actually it's OPEX actually. Minimum of OPEX that needs to be spent in conducting your business.
Sounds like it's superfluous in terms of creating a business, like just having a skeletal crew and then
no. It's not like
stuff, chunky stuff right here in KL.
No, it's not going to be like that. There are a lot of players who have lots of people in Labuan actually. Like some of the trust companies in Labuan, they employ 200 to 300 people. That's good for me. And those are backroom processing type of business where you administer other, well, the companies of other jurisdictions, for example, they do all this accounting, do all this administrative work. But to me, those things that will generate a lot of employment, and I think we should encourage those things.
Okay, so that's one. What's the other things that you have to do?
Well, of course, I also have to increase revenues for, well, in a way, do more contributions in terms of revenue for the nation. So with all these changes as well in these tax policies, hopefully well, we will see some increase in terms of fiscal contribution to the nation from Labuan IBFC. there is already, but of course we want to do more.
How much is that? What was the contribution of revenue?
Right now, well, I'm not sure whether I can quote the figure, but it runs the billions, right? Hopefully it will just increase by at least another probably 50% at least, hopefully.
When?
Probably in the next 3 or 4 years.
So you're looking at growing about 10 to 20% every year for the next 5 years.
In terms of fiscal contribution.
Where's the growth coming from?
Well, it will come from the players, of course, because now we have also changed the tax rules to remove the selection between, because previously you can either pay 20,000 or 3%. That's one, right? 20,000 is nothing, right? Ringgit.
Sorry, what was it in terms of taxes?
In terms of tax. So that has been removed. The 20,000 has now been removed since this year.
20,000?
Yeah, it's gone.
It's like a monthly electricity bill
Yeah,
somewhere,
that's right. Yeah. So that has gone. That has been removed, and so now you need to pay at least 3%, and that's
of revenue.
Of revenues, of net profits, whatever that is. Yeah, if you operate out of Labuan.
Still, that's crazy, right? I mean, like corporate tax is like 20 whatever percent.
But don't forget this tax. Well, if you compare with 20,000, of course, it's a substantial change.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like talking about at least what? In some cases it might go up to at least 100%. Because depending on what will be the net profit. So that in a way will contribute a lot. And hopefully it will change a lot of things in terms of fiscal contribution. So I guess those are the two major things that I really want to do, at least to increase employment in Labuan and also generate more activities for Labuan, because like I say, because of all this downturn in the oil sector, well, I'm not sure whether we can be the only so-called institutional bodies in Labuan that will contribute to at least some economic activities for Labuan.
Okay. Right. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more with Daniel of Labuan. Don't go anywhere. Thanks for staying on with us. I'm with Danial Mah of Labuan. He's the Director General of Labuan FSA, and of course, he is also representing Labuan IBFC. Daniel, the fact that you've been in Labuan for quite a bit actually gives us a lot of opportunity for us to explore the whole journey that Labuan has been taking.
Yeah.
So I'm asking you, not just in your capacity as DG of Labuan FSA, but your capacity as an employee or a resident of Labuan for, I don't know, 2 decades or 3 decades that you've been there. How has things changed over time?
Yeah.
And are you proud that after 20 years of being there, things are where it is now, or you're still, you know, quite remiss that there are some lost opportunities and you want to explore even further?
I mean, I guess you're talking about Labuan itself, the island. You're right, I've been there for what, since 1996? That's how many years? 20?
I don't know, man.
Yes,
it's a long time.
20, yeah, it's been a long time. I'm
pretty sure some of our colleagues here in Astro AWANI were born after the 1996.
Yeah, they probably are not aware.
Yeah.
That's right. But it is a beautiful place. Really, you should go there. You know, Astro AWANI, you really should go there. It's a nice island. Not very big, of course. It's just about 92 square kilometers with 100,000 people there. It is a duty-free island, you know. Certain things you can get cheap there. Certain things like cars. Well, you don't drive every day. It is a small island. There's not much places to drive around anyway. But having said that, like I say, initially when we go there, when I reached there personally, right, we were saying, wow, this place, you know, is a very quiet place. I guess there will be probably nothing much to do. That was my initial reaction. And of course, my family members were saying, oh, where are the pavilions, you know? Of course, you can't find a pavilion there. But having said that, after just maybe about 3 months, then you start to grow to like the place. If you come to Labuan, of course, because it's a rustic place, right? You don't find traffic jams there. I mean, if there's queue of 20 cars, there's traffic jam for us. So you can go back for lunch, you can go back for dinner, so you're not like stuck in the traffic for 2-3 hours. So in a way, it helps a lot in terms of our work, right?
But you see, this ties in back with the success factor of Labuan IBFC.
Yeah.
Because after being there since 1996, it doesn't look like things have changed much since 1996.
Oh yeah,
in terms of economic prosperity.
No, I would disagree with you. Actually, frankly, it has changed tremendously. I mean, Labuan itself has changed tremendously. Like I say, when I was there 28 years ago, the airport is still very small, but now it's huge. We have quite a big airport there, right? And a lot of things have been built for Labuan itself. We now have one university there. We have a matriculation college there, and a lot of infrastructure developments have taken place in Labuan. Connectivity there is not really an issue now. I mean, in terms of now we're talking about fiberizing the whole of Labuan. And all this, in some ways, is contributed to some extent because there's a need to serve the IBFC. And frankly, Labuan FSA itself also owns an international school to cater to all this international community. So unless you see for yourself, really, the development of Labuan, you will not be convinced in some ways because
there's no point, because if I go there, there's no snapshot, right? I go there as a static. It's like looking at a picture. I don't know the before and after.
No, seriously. There? Yeah, you really must get to go there. Then only you realize what has changed over the years. I mean, when we first arrived there, it was just a normal. Like I say, it was an oil and gas sector, right?
Okay. So my second half of the question is, do you think that you can do more? Not you as in you, but as in IBFC can do more?
Oh yeah. We really want to do more.
So what would be some of the missed opportunities of the past, 3 decades?
Well, in some ways, when we first started, we want to make sure that Labuan remains reputable. We do not want to see so-called illegitimate business be conducted out
Are there a lot of illegitimate businesses?
No. The reason why we hardly have any is really because of the rules and regulations that are put in place for Labuan. It's pretty high if we compare ourselves with other centers.
That may not be a good thing as well, right? Because
you can say
the reason why people want to do these things is because they want to have lax regulations.
Yeah,
Let's not kid ourselves, right?
I know. But in some ways, we also do not want to be a center known to be the tax haven of the region or stuff like that, or the money laundering center of the region. I mean, like in some rules that we put in place, like in the case of banking, for example, we can't have cash transactions. That's one thing we disallow. So the sectors within the IBFC really is catered more for wholesale banking or wholesale activities, institutional activities, not really for retail business in many ways. Even the insurance sector is more about reinsurance. That means institutional insurance. It's not the normal life insurance stuff. And that's by design, seriously. It's really to make sure that Labuan remains reputable. It is not being used for any other activities except for legitimate business. So that has always been.
But economic growth comes with retail, right?
Yeah, but
wholesale businesses don't drive economic prosperity at the pedestrian level.
Frankly, yeah, you're right. But of course, don't forget, Labuan, in many ways, well, then I really got to draw to you the so-called
Please, go ahead.
The bilateral kind of thing between Labuan. Of course, there is also the domestic economy, so to speak. We also have local banks there. We also have the local May banks there, HSBC, which do all these retail business for the local business. Whereas as far as Labuan IBFC is concerned, our main focus is all mainly on wholesale business. So that's why we are not in this realm of retail business. So those things are happening, of course. You know, we have a lot of barter trading last time. So those things will be taken care by the so-called the local banks, you know, in inverted commas. So like I say, a lot of changes. And of course, because of all these new developments that's coming in, and then with this Asian region being the so-called the most dynamic in many years ahead, we will take more advantage, I can assure you, definitely.
Okay. Again, we'll go for a short break. When we come back, we'll conclude our conversation with Danial Mah of Labuan FSA. Don't go anywhere. Thanks for staying on with us. You're watching Notepad. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. Today I'm with Danial Mah of Labuan IBFC. He's the DG of Labuan FSA. Very recently, Danial, you were alluding to it earlier as well, that you were introducing some new initiatives from Labuan. And one of them is one that involves insurance. I have here a press release talking about the captive insurance growth in Labuan and how you guys are maintaining that jurisdictional leadership. let's understand a little bit better. When you say you are, leading in terms of having jurisdictional leadership, what does that mean? Is that by having, better laws, or how does that work?
Like I say, we cater to institutional business.
Yes.
Captive is just one of those insurance products that we do out of Labuan. Frankly, it's quite unique. Well, if I just put it in a very simple terms, captive is more something like self-insurance, where you can save costs on your insurance.
Okay.
All right. You self-insure, so to speak. All those good risks you can park into this captive, and then you just self-insure yourself, and then you make money out of it.
These kind of products.
Yes.
Do you have product management teams that come up with the products, or do you copy paste from somewhere else, and at the jurisdiction you just make sure that it works here? How does that work?
Well, captive is a very old product. If very old, so it's a lot of jurisdictions are doing it. Bermuda, Guernsey.
Yeah.
So in a way, we just adopt it, and offer it out of Labuan.
So it comes up from your shop, basically.
Yeah, of course. It is within our ambit of our laws. Everything that we do in Labuan is within the ambit of our regulations. We have our own set of laws. We have the banking law, insurance law that caters to all these type of products. And we also issue guidelines to make sure that things are regulated properly. So like I say, in the insurance sector, reinsurance and captive is something that is growing very well for us because Malaysia, the domestic market don't have this concept of captives, of course.
Of course. But like I said, this is moving away from captive insurance.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, when you create new offerings and services, does it come from your place, or local players create it and you just regulate it?
Well, we have quite a lot of, we have our own market development team, of course, and we work very closely with our players. Do
you set a target for your local team to create products?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of benchmarking, see what is happening elsewhere, and then see whether we can adopt them. And right now also we are moving into this fintech area. We have we have quite a number of all these so-called digital asset players that are now in Labuan. We have close to about what?
Because offshore is such an old business, right?
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that race to the market is not a thing for you guys? You are not time pressed to roll out products that the market can actually opt for. Is that the consideration? And therefore,
we have to be really agile and adaptive. Otherwise, you will not be able to survive because things are so fluid now. Of course, so if you don't take advantage of things that are happening or tap the opportunities that are created from all these so-called new dynamics, right? Then you'll probably be left out. If you go back to captive, like we are just one of the 3 centers that offers in this part of the world, Singapore, Hong Kong. In terms of number of captives, we are ahead, right? We have also been awarded as the best captive so-called jurisdiction by the Asia Review magazine or something, right? And we are proud of it, actually, in terms of that product that we have been introducing. A lot of local institutions are also using it because, like I say, it is a very cost-efficient way of saving on your insurance so-called costs. But like I say, the new dynamics like China market, of course, something that we cannot ignore. This is the biggest market for us, and we are doing a lot more things for at least to tap more Chinese business. Like in a case, we have now a new institutions that from China, a big one that recently been set up, and hopefully
what is that called?
Is China Construction Bank.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
so,
sorry.
Yeah, it's big, right? It's a branch of the so-called the head office of Beijing, and he has a huge balance sheet, right? And so hopefully we can ride on them. We do ride a lot with our players. We do a lot of collaboration with our players to tap on various markets because they know better. I mean, we cannot admit ourselves to be knowing everything. At the end of the day, it is the players that needs to drive the business, and we have to work with them.
Yeah, see, that's the question about product development as well as regulation.
Yeah, you have to work with the players.
Yeah, but Bank Negara doesn't create products, you see. The players create products.
I don't know. I'm not from Bank Negara, Labuan FSC.
Okay. So
yeah.
you're a regulator, right?
Yeah, of course. But
so let me tell you something, that the regulator of Bank Negara doesn't create products.
I think they do, of course.
They don't.
I'm not sure.
That's why they regulate.
Is it?
Yeah.
But I think in our case, we have to be adaptive. We have to be agile because, like I say, we are pretty young, 28 years old. So we need to make sure that we are always there to benchmark ourselves, to make sure that we're always there, so that investors from these various parts of the countries in this part of the region will continue to use us, at least, for their transactions.
All right. That was my conversation with Danial Mah of Labuan IBFC, is the DG of Labuan FSA. If you've missed any part of this interview, just head on to astro.com, look for Notepad. These kind of interviews are there. Also, you can watch these kind of interviews on your mobile app. Just download the Astro AWANI app wherever you get the application. Until next time, thanks very much for watching and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank
Brian.
you.
Yep.
Thank you.